So I've got two things to say, one happy and one sad. The happy thing is that Senegal is a very stable and democratic nation. The sad thing is that I have to mention that Senegal is here. We have a regular brief government profile roadmap. Let's get started. Let's start with the government structure. Senegal is a semi-presidential republic, which means it has a president. They are elected by the people via a runoff voting system. Currently, they have a 7-year term, but it's going to be 5 years from the next election in 2019. The president is the head of state, so they have the typical military powers. They appoint the PM, and they're part of the executive branch with the PM and cabinet. They also have a veto power, but it's not often used because cohabitation is really rare. Cohabitation is when different parties control the presidency and assembly, and no major one has occurred in Senegal. The second part of the semi-presidential system is the National Assembly. This is the current Prime Minister of Senegal. They have 150 seats with a 5-year term. They're elected by the mixed member majoritarian or MMM system, which we'll go over later. The Prime Minister is chosen by the President and is approved by the Assembly. And the Prime Minister is usually from the parliamentary leading coalition. Now let's get into the election system. For the president, they use a runoff voting system. How it works is that there's multiple candidates in the first round, and the second round consists of the top 2 people so that someone gets a majority, similar to France or Ecuador. Here's a sample election. So in round 1, you can see that blue and red are clearly the only candidates that have an actual chance of becoming president. In round 2, you can actually see that the leader in the first round was actually not the president in the second round. This system allows voters to vote for small parties in round 1 because they know that they can vote for the big ones in round 2. For the National Assembly, they use a mixed member majoritarian system for 150 seats. There's 45 constituencies with not necessarily just one member. 90 seats are given by simple majority and 60 seats are given via a proportional method. There are 90 simple majority seats. Here's a sample election with the 7-member department. So you can see the votes are a rainbow, with A only winning 35% of the votes, but because of the first past the post voting system, they get all 7 of the seats, and that's not particularly diverse. In fact, that reminds me of something. Do you see it now? It's the Japanese flag, and you don't want a Japanese flag in your election results. Otherwise, Japanese flags are pretty good. Now, there are 60 seats given by proportional representation. Here's a sample election, which is the election of 2007. You can see that there's a rainbow of colors on this voting pie graph, but a Japanese flag when it comes to actual seats. Why is this? Because in every single one of the districts, the red group just managed to get more votes than everyone else. Even though they didn't win 100% of the votes, they still get 100% of the seats. Therefore, by proportional representation, you start giving more seats to the parties that are underrepresented in the assembly. You start with the blue party, which is the most underrepresented, then you go to the yellow party, and so on. This continues until you run out of seats. It's important to note that MMM is not the same as MMP. CGP Grey has done an amazing video on MMP. The only major difference is that in MMP there are 2 elections, while in MMM there's only 1. Now the question is, what's actually happening in Senegal? And that's a good question. And the answer is that on July 2nd, Senegal will have its legislative election, which means its assembly is getting elected. Now by popular demand, party time has been reduced to only 2 major parties, which in Senegal would be these 2. Let's start with the first one, which has 119 seats, 79% of the total. Therefore, it's the ruling party. It is a very democratic party, which supports less power to the president and more checks and balances for a stable government. Therefore, they had a referendum in 2016, which was passed, and majorly this changed the term length of a president from 7 years to 5 years. This will be implemented after the current president's first term, which was not what he promised. Although it doesn't happen every day that rulers take away their power. Here's the second party. This has only 12 seats, that is 8% of the total seats. This was the ruling party before the most recent presidential election, and they lost because of many corruption scandals and a quote-unquote power-hungry image. The 2012 presidential election was very controversial because the former president was running for the 3rd term. All of his opponents united against him in the second round, which he lost. Now let's get into recent politics. The current president had promised to reduce the term of the presidency to 5 years. And he did deliver it, although many say that was too late because his first term was 7 years. There are also some other scandals with links in the description. There's also a recession going on right now in Senegal and West Africa generally. This is less severe in Senegal. Recently, there were protests in the capital and largest city. There were protests for and against the ruling party. The ruling party is still progressively campaigning, and this includes the current president as well. So now it's time for the prediction. Disclaimer, this is an exceptionally loose prediction, and on that note, my prediction is that the ruling party will maintain its rule and send a prime minister. This, however, is an exceptionally weak prediction for the reasons mentioned. And that concludes this video. Senegal is a very great country and is an example because of its democratic values. I hope this remains forever. Thank you very much for watching, and be sure to subscribe and comment because I really need your feedback. And that's it.